Hey guys, welcome back. I am Jason Salyer, and we're on a little bit of an adventure today. It's very wet. It's been raining for about 12 hours. It's sprinkling right now. We've got some makeshift ponchos on the kids, and we're going to challenge them to see if we can get a fire going, and I'm going to give them a little bit of guidance, but I'm going to try to see if they can do it by themselves for the most part.
Mom, the spikes went inside the mom.
We've got a pretty flat spot here, and I want you guys to start a fire. It's going to be pretty hard today because it's really rainy and wet, and it's still kind of drizzly raining a little bit, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a cheat, little bit of help. I'm going to give you a lighter, and I'm going to give you a little fire plug. That's going to make it much, much easier for you to start the fire, okay? Listen, let me tell you something, because if you don't do what I'm saying, you will not get a fire. You're going to fail, and then you have to start over, because we're not leaving until you get a fire going, okay? Listen, pay attention. See these tiny twigs, these little ones, these teeny, tiny ones. That is what you need to collect to get your fire started, okay? If you collect big ones like this, that's fine after these are lit on fire, but you've got to get these first. We've got to find a spot on the ground to start our fire. So Sage has already made herself a couch. So what we'll do is we'll move all the the wet stuff off of the ground as much as we can. The ground is still going to be damp, so we've got to make a bed for the fire to sit on.
Twigs.
Yeah, you're going to take the edge of the knife and you're going to scrape all that wetness off of the outside of the branch. That's it. That's it. So you want to keep it dry, you want to lean it against a tree like that so it's not on the wet leaves. So we're not carving the wood, we're not cutting it like this, we're scraping it. So we're going to hold the edge of the knife at 90 degrees like this, and you're going to hold it still, and you're going to pull the stick. You see how the bark comes off? It helps if you don't use the tip of the knife. See how you're trying to scrape it right here on the tip of the knife? Use this part of the knife and hold your hand closer to the blade. Move up. There you go. The knife still on my leg like this, and I pull the stick. See that? See how easy it is? I'm not trying hard. I'm not pushing hard. It takes no muscles, no effort. I'm just gently scraping the stick clean like that. Okay? I'm not having to, not pushing anything like that. Just gently scraping the stick. See it? So you can make the bed with these twigs now. You break these sticks in half like this. And you can lay some this direction, and then you lay the others this direction, kind of like building a log cabin sort of deal, like that. And what that does is it gets some airspace between the wet ground and and your fire. You see that? So now I'm not touching the wet ground. My fire is going to get built on top of that. Does that make sense? Yeah? And this is wet, but it's a lot drier than this mud. Understood? All right, so what we might need to do if we did not have a tinder or fire plug like we have, we're going to be using that. So you should definitely always carry something like that. There's no reason not to. They're small, they're waterproof, and they get the job done even in really wet environments. But if you didn't have one, what you want to do is get to the inside of this wood. We've scraped off the outer bark, which was wet, but now we need to get to the inside of the bark, and you need to make something called a feather stick. And basically what I do is I use that same method I use for scraping, but now instead of scraping, I'm going to actually cut into the wood. I still hold the blade still, but I'll pull the stick like so. And what that does is it gives me these little feathery sections of wood. And the deeper I go into the branch, the drier the wood's going to be. And this increases the surface area of the wood itself, and it's going to make it much more easy to ignite. And then you can feel it. This right here is dry. I can feel that with my skin, and I know that that's nice and dry, and that's going to light up really easily. But with a tinder plug and some really small kindling, you can skip this step. And when we're talking about kids, there's really no need for them to waste time doing something like this as long as they're prepared when they enter a wild place like the one we're in right now. All right, Elijah, break that in half. Twist it, tear it. Fuzz it up with your fingers. Yeah, just pull those hairs apart. There you go. That's going to make it easier to light. Okay? Do you want to light it or do you want to light it? Who wants to?
Me.
Oh, Sage wants to light it. So Scarlett, give her the lighter. See how I'm tearing this thing apart with my fingers? The more I do that, the easier it's going to be for me to light this thing on fire. If I use the whole one, you don't always have to use the whole one. Usually you don't. But if you use the whole one, it'll burn a long time and it'll make it easier for you to dry out this wet kindling. So Sage, can you light that without knocking everything everywhere? Think you can do that? And then you, Scarlett, are going to put this gently on top of it.
Put it down.
There you go. Now, Scarlett's going to gently put that on top.
Whoa.
Gently. So you got to be very careful when the fire is small. So let's leave that alone. Let's leave that alone and let it burn. Another good tip, guys, on your lighters. Most of you probably know this, but just in case, make sure you remove the child safety thing on lighters. Those things are ridiculous. Teach your kids how to use lighters and the proper use of lighters so they won't catch your house on fire, but remove that child safety thing if you expect your kids to be able to use it.
Wait,
Rain's coming. The whole thing, and do it very gently on top of there. Always remove the child safety thing off your lighter if you expect your kids to be able to do it. Keep it in an Exotac fire sleeve like this. It's a good idea to lanyard the cap to there. I didn't do that yet, but I will, just so the kids don't lose it. But this is going to keep it waterproof and to make sure it's always working, and it's not going to drain any fluid out. The other thing is always keep one of those little fire plugs. The Wazoo fire plugs are the best ones that I've used. They are completely waterproof. You could soak it in the creek for a day, pull it out, and it will light right up once you tear it apart. If you have those two things, a lighter with a good waterproof sleeve on it and a tinder plug or fire plug, you will be able to get a fire. Even a 7-year-old little girl can get a fire going, no problem. In wet weather, you've got to be very gentle with the fire. You've got to be really cautious with it. Treat it like it's a delicate little flower and you can't smush it. You got to be real careful with it. It's got to have good oxygen flow. Be patient with it. Make sure it's so it can dry out the wood. But without that tinder plug, that little fire plug, it'd be really, really hard to get a fire going right now. It would take a lot longer to prepare the wood. You'd have to scrape all these sticks. You'd have to make a whole bunch of feather sticks, or you'd have to scrape all the bark off of all this. It'd be much more difficult. Lift it up, give it some air, and watch the flame. Does it grow when you do that, or does it get smaller when you do it? So put your hand on the side of the fire like this. Guys, do it. Put your hands on the side of the fire like this. Do it. Put your hands there. Do you feel any heat? No. But do you feel heat right here? Yeah. So that's where we want to put our kindling, is right on top.
Is hot.
We want to put it right on top because that's where it's going to dry out our kindling.
The smoke is...
There you go. Gently on top so they start to dry out. Right on top of the smoke. Before you even start your fire, let's say you're going to have this fire and you're going to burn it all night long, right? You needed a fire all night long. How much wood would you collect? Do you remember how much?
A lot.
How much? Not a lot. How much is a lot? Do you remember? No, that's how much we need to get that's how much kindling we need to start the fire. How much fuel firewood, big stuff.
I know.
How much do we need?
That, like that.
You need this much? That'll burn all night long?
No, that one.
No, big stuff like arm size, you need a pile at least as big as you are. I would say bigger, like the size of all of you together. That's how much firewood you need to make it last all night long. Yeah, that's a lot. And it would take you a while to gather it, but you'd want to have all that set up and ready to go before you light the fire. Because otherwise you're running around, scrambling, and this is about to go out, and you have to hurry and run through the woods to get that stuff collected when you shouldn't have to do that. You need to have it all gathered beforehand. You see how much firewood I just brought back?
Yeah.
This is one trip. You guys, every time you make a trip, you're coming back with like a twig.
That's sick.
Go out, grab all the branches, bring them back, and then once you're back to the fire, then start breaking them apart. So you don't have to make 15 trips through the woods. This is what you guys are doing. Right? This is what I want you to do. You see the difference? See how much more air it gets to the fire? Much more heat. Guys, now that we have a fire like this that's burning really, really well, successfully, it's burning by itself. You don't have to baby it. You don't have to watch it so closely. You don't have to blow on it. Now you would be needing to put on bigger firewood, like arm size stuff, like big fuel stuff that's going to burn a long time.
Yeah,
okay?
but we don't have any of that.
We're not going to do that right now because we're going to let this fire go out, but that's what you would want next. So, hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Make sure you hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Leave us a comment, any comment, doesn't matter at all. I'd be really grateful for that, and we'll see you on the next one.